is starting at 2. We are only 4 minutes late. Okay, so now over to you, Ravi sir, please.
Thank you, sir, for the nice introduction. Now we are going to start the topic. Today, we are going to discuss on endocrinology and reproductive system. We are saying discussion, it means we will understand endocrinology system, and then we are going to apply the hormones in the reproductive system. And it includes some basic part as well as certain applied part. We are also going to discuss on certain questions which are asked in the CSR examinations. So let us start with the very basic endocrine system. As you know, along with the nervous system, endocrine system is also acting as a body's communication network. It is composed of various endocrine glands and of course endocrine cells. There are two types of glands, exocrine gland and endocrine. Exocrine possesses duct, whereas endocrine is ductless gland. Exocrine gland have lumen and surface, whereas endocrine do not have. Even you are able to see in the diagram that in the endocrine gland they don't have any option, that since they don't have duct, they pass hormones or their chemical directly into the blood, and hence they are acting far distant from their location. But if I am talking about regarding the exocrine gland, they are having duct, and hence through the duct they are able to release their content or secretory substance in the nearby area only. If you are talking regarding the different number of the endocrine organs, there are different endocrine organs like pituitary gland, pineal gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, and there are two part of the adrenal gland also, cortex and medulla, which is considered as pure endocrine gland or pure endocrine organs. Pure in the sense that they are not having any other type of enzymes released by them. But if I am saying about the other type of endocrine which are not pure, which are having dual role, some in some other purposes also, these are pancreas, thymus, gonad as well as hypothalamus. And this is a diagram where I am showing the location, pineal gland, hypothalamus gland, pituitary gland. They are part of the brain. Then thyroid and parathyroid, it's nearby. And then thymus, it will be followed by adrenal glands, which is located on the kidney, and pancreas nearby the kidney, and there are two other, ovary which is present in female and testis which is present in the male. It is related to the gonads. Now come to the actual part, that is hormone, which is released by the glands. Hormones are basically chemical substances synthesized and secreted by specific type of cell. They are transported by circulation at very low concentration. It elicits specific responses in the distant target tissues. If we consider about the different type of hormones, let us discuss about first various classes of the hormones. There are three main class on the basis of nature of the biomolecule. There are three classes of the hormone. They may be proteinaceous or polypeptides. They may be steroid or they may be derivative of the amino acid. First come to the protein and polypeptides. These includes hormone which are secreted by the anterior and posterior pituitary gland, the pancreas, and parathyroid gland. Uh, Come to the steroids. These are secreted by the adrenal cortex, cortisol and aldosterone, the ovaries, testis, and placenta. And the third category is derivative of the amino acid. Tyrosine secreted by the thyroid, as we know, and the adrenal medulla also. So those type of hormone which are derived from the tyrosine, these are the thyroxine and triiodothyronine. This is the derivative of amino acid, and other type of derivative of amino acid is epinephrine as well as epinephrine. If you consider about the polypeptide and peptide hormone, so they are stored in the secretory vesicle until needed, and whatever the hormone produced in our body, most of the hormones which are secreted, they are polypeptide or proteinaceous in nature. If I'm thinking about the steroid hormone, so usually they synthesize from cholesterol, and this type of hormones are not stored. They are the lipid soluble hormone, or you can say it is lipophilic type of hormone, and it consists of three cyclohexyl rings and one cyclopentyl ring which is combined into a single structure. The third type of hormone is amine hormone, which is generally derived from the tyrosine. The two groups of the hormone are derived from the tyrosine, the thyroid and adrenal medullary hormones, which we discussed just now. Now you can see the mechanism of action of hormones. See, we are going to discuss on two different kind of the hormones. One is hydrophilic, other is hydrophobic. If I am going to talk on hydrophilic type of hormone, so the receptors for this type of hormone will be present on the cell membrane. I'm just going to show you. See, these are the receptors which is present on the cell membrane. Now, water soluble hormones, when it will enter, they have to bind on the receptors. So this hormone will bind to receptor, ligand receptor interaction occurs, and they are responsible for activation of secondary messenger. Say for example, cyclic AMP in these cases, which is leading to the production of the protein kinase. They activate other protein kinase, and hence a cascade of reaction occurs, and finally they are responsible for either gene expression or expression of the protein. This is a part of signal molecule signaling system also, which you might have studied in the signal transduction mechanism. But I'm saying among different type of signaling, I'm basically showing here the G protein coupled receptor, which is a type which is actually activated by water soluble type of hormone. Besides this, water soluble hormones are not only binding to the G protein coupled receptor, they also bind to the enzyme receptors also. The next type of hormone which you have to understand is lipophilic hormone, or you can say hydrophobic hormone. These hormones are not actually binding to the cell membrane receptor. They are easily able to diffuse because they are lipophilic, and our cell membrane, which is also consists of lipid and protein. So through the lipid, these lipophilic hormones are able to diffuse. Once they diffuse inside, they enter into the cytoplasm. There are two locations of the receptors of lipophilic hormone. Either they bind to the cytoplasmic receptor or they bind to the nuclear receptor. If they bind to the cytoplasmic receptor, along with the receptor they enter into nucleus, or they directly enter into the nuclear receptor, there where they can bind to the receptor, and finally they are responsible for activation of hormone response element. Transcription factor becomes activated, and finally transcription occurs. It will be followed by the translation. So these are the two different mechanism of the hormone. One is lipophilic, other is hydrophilic type. Now come to the another one. Say, whatever we discussed, it was the just generalized type of hormones. Now we are going to discuss on different type of hormone released by different glands. The first and foremost thing, we should start with the brain, and one of the important gland is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is basically controlling pituitary gland. So whatever the pituitary gland, which is also considered as the master gland, they are secreting 8 different type of hormones. But pituitary gland is actually commanded by hypothalamus. They are releasing two type of hormone. One is releasing type of hormone, other is inhibitory type of hormone. Releasing type of hormone means those hormone which are commanding the hormone released by the pituitary gland. And inhibitory hormone, it means those hormone which are inhibiting the secretion of pituitary hormone. Say for example, thyrotropin releasing hormone. It means they stimulate secretion of thyroid stimulating hormone and prolactin. Thyroid stimulating hormone and prolactin is secreted by pituitary gland, but that is actually commanded by thyrotropin releasing hormone. Then second hormone is corticotropin releasing hormone. Obviously, they are releasing hormone. It It is causing release of the adenocorticotropic hormone released by, it is secreted by or released by pituitary gland. Third is growth hormone releasing hormone, which causes release of growth hormone. Then gonadotropin releasing hormone. It also causes release of luteinizing hormone as well as follicle stimulating hormone. So in the right side, I have given thyroid stimulating hormone, adenocorticotropic hormone, growth hormone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. These all are released by pituitary gland, but actually their release will be controlled by control, or you are saying the release can be accelerated by releasing type of hormone which is secreted by hypothalamus. Now, other two hormones, that is growth hormone inhibitory hormone, it is also known as somatostatin, or dopamine or prolactin inhibiting hormone. They are responsible for the inhibition of growth hormone and prolactin hormone respectively, and they are responsible for inhibition. So this is inhibitory effect. Okay. Now come to the anterior pituitary. See, as I said, that the master gland is anterior pituitary. Uh, there are three part of the actually pituitary: anterior, then median part, and posterior. So most of the hormones are released by the anterior pituitary only. There are total 6 type of hormone released by the anterior pituitary: growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, adenocorticotropic hormone, prolactin, follicle stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone. Growth hormone, obviously, it is related to the growth, so it stimulates protein synthesis and overall growth of the cell and tissue. Thyroid stimulating hormone stimulate synthesis and secretion of thyroid. Adenocorticotropic hormone stimulates synthesis and secretion of adenocortical hormones. Prolactin. Here I am going to emphasize a particular point that prolactin promote development of female breast, that is fine, but they are also responsible for the secretion of milk. See, secretion and stimulation, these are two different things. So here, prolactin is responsible for the secretion of milk, whereas oxytocin is basically related to the stimulation for secretion. These are two different words that may be asked in the examinations. Now come to follicle stimulating hormone. They cause growth of follicles in the ovaries and sperm maturation in the Sertoli cells of testis. So they are acting on both male and female. In the male, they are playing important role in maturation of the sperm in Sertoli cells. We'll discuss on these points in details when we'll study about the reproductive system also. Now come to the luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone stimulates testosterone synthesis in the Leydig cells, and they stimulate ovulation, formation of corpus luteum, and estrogen, progesterone, etc. in the ovaries. So they are also having dual role. They play important role in female, that is fine, but they also play important role in male also, which that is the stimulation of testosterone synthesis in the Leydig cells. Now come to other type of glands. Posterior pituitary is secreting two type of hormone: antidiuretic hormone, which is also famous with the name of vasopressin, and oxytocin. ADH, that is vasopressin, is famous for increasing water reabsorption by the kidney, and it causes vasoconstriction and increased blood pressure. So whenever blood pressure is going to be decreased, it is actually maintained by antidiuretic hormone. So vasoconstriction occurs, and due to vasoconstriction, vessel is going to be constricted, and hence the pressure is going to be increased. I'm just talking regarding the command of the kidney to maintain the blood pressure. So these things you will study separately in the physiology of the excretion system also. So it increases water reabsorption by kidney and causes vasoconstriction and increased blood pressure. Oxytocin, they stimulate milk ejection, just now I discussed, from the breast, and uterine contraction. Now come to the intermediate lobe, which is situated between the anterior and posterior pituitary. Through the intermediate lobe, one hormone is secreted known as melanocyte stimulating hormone. Melanocytes in the skin secrete melanocytic stimulating hormone in the response of UV. So more you will expose to the UV, more melanin will be secreted, and that is responsible for the dark pigmentation of the skin. Okay. So this dark pigmentation related to the melanin, and it is actually synthesized by melanocyte stimulating hormone. Then another important gland is pineal gland, which is not related to the pituitary, but it is present in the hypothalamus, in the thalamic region only. They are secreting melatonin hormone, and this is responsible for two important things. Number one, it influences daily rhythm. So whatever the daily rhythm, it means the circadian rhythm, it means awake. In a particular time, you feel sleep. In a particular time, you awake. In a particular time, you feel that you have to do a particular kind of work. This is all. This is all you can understand that how this is going to be happen simultaneously, because this is programmed, and this is called daily rhythm. It is actually maintained by melatonin, and they are also responsible for controlling seasonal fertility in some of the animal. We are not knowing that whether they are responsible for the seasonal fertility in case of animal also, but yeah, it is true that they are controlling seasonal fertility in some of the animals. Now come to the disorders. Related to the pituitary gland, there are several disorders. One is hypopituitarism. As the name suggests, hypo, it means less. Pituitarism, it means pituitary secretion will be less, which causes several kind of the problem, because pituitary gland releasing several type of hormone, and of course, if it is decreasing, several kind of the problems might occur. The next is acromegaly. Acromegaly, it means acromegaly, it means the excess growth hormone. And if the growth hormone will release in the excess amount, obviously the growth will be more, and the person becomes too much tall, more and more than the average. And their body posture as well as their facial expressions are also going to be changed. Then come to the dwarfism. The dwarfism, the organism is exceptionally small, so it is just opposite of that acromegaly. Both are related to growth hormone. One is excess and other is too less. Then next come to the Cushing disease. Cushing disease is basically related to the increase of expression of cortisol. It increases secretion of adenocorticotropic hormone, and you can say excess cortisol will be released. Cortisol play a very important role in the metabolism. So obviously metabolic related disorders occurs by Cushing disease. Now, diabetic insipidus. We know very well about the diabetes, but diabetes is again of two types, mellitus and insipidus. So here I am talking regarding diabetes insipidus, a condition which is characterized by large amount of dilute urine and increased thirst. So basically diabetes insipidus is related to the urine, diluted urine. It means they are related to the failure of the water reabsorption, and hence excess urination occurs. And obviously, if water will be lost, increase of the thirst occurs. The next is pituitary adenoma. Pituitary adenoma is it is adenoma. Adenoma, whenever terminology will be there, you should understand that it is related to the tumor. So pituitary adenoma is related to the tumor that occurs in the pituitary gland. Now, some more hormone we'll discuss. Thyroid and parathyroid type of hormone. Thyroid hormones, thyroid gland is releasing three type of hormone: T3, T4, and calcitonin. T3 and T4 is basically triiodothyronine and tetraiodothyronine, which is also known as thyroxine. So the major function of the T3 and T4 is they increases the rate of chemical reaction in most of the cell, and thus increasing body metabolic rate. So it is related to the metabolism. And next is calcitonin. Calcitonin is basically related to the deposition of calcium in bone. It means in the bone, the calcium level will be maintained by the calcitonin, and it also decreases extracellular fluid calcium ion concentration. Basically, they are decreasing the level of calcium in the extracellular fluid, and they are responsible for the deposition. It means calcium will pass from extracellular fluid and reach to the bone. So in the bone, the level of calcium will be increased with the help of calcitonin. The opposite role of calcitonin will be played by parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone is responsible for the decreasing of calcium level in the bone. It means calcitonin is increasing calcium level deposition, whereas parathyroid is decreasing. So decreasing, then where calcium will go? So it will actually, it's a type of balance only. So the calcium will release from the bones. Why it is released? It is very simple to understand. Excess calcium must not be needed. So it is a balance between the calcitonin and parathyroid. So if the excess calcium will be deposited in bone, whereas its level will be less in the extracellular fluid, then it should be removed from the bone by parathyroid and it will be available in the extracellular fluid. It increasing calcium absorption by gut also as well as kidney. Okay. You can see how this thing is going to happen. Suppose this is a cell T4 at T3, whatever it is going to be entered. So suppose T4 is entered, entry of T4 lead to the activation of iodinase enzyme, which is basically accepting iodine, and hence T4 is converted into T3 in the cytoplasm. So if directly T3 is coming, it is fine. If it is T4 is coming, still it is fine. It will be converted into T3. Now T3 is entering into the nucleus. In the nucleus, as you know very well, that the hormone which is released by the thyroid, that is thyroxine, tetraiodothyroxine, etc. All these hormones are hydrophobic. It means they are able to cross from cell membrane, and their receptors are present in the nucleus. In the nucleus, you can find thyroid hormone receptors. And one question readily asked in the examination is retinoid receptors. See, retinoid is basically, it is related to the thyroid, T3. Okay, so retinoid type of receptors are there, retinoid X and thyroid hormone receptors. It's the same you can see here. Okay, so both will be present. It's a dual one. And then when T3 will be passed, after this binding, obviously they are responsible for the expression of gene transcription occurs, translation occurs, and those type of proteins will be formed, which are responsible for general metabolism, cardiovascular activity, central nervous system development, growth, and many other systems. So there are a lot of function played by the thyroid hormone. So in the metabolism, you can understand that mitochondria, sodium, potassium pump, oxygen consumption, glucose absorption, so many role will be played by this hormone. Now, if you see how this thyroid hormone is regulated. So come to the regulation of thyroid secretion. As you can see here that when iodine will be entered inside, in the presence of iodine, thyroxine will be activated. This thyroxine will be responsible for the increasing of metabolism, which we have seen just now in this figure. If the metabolism is increasing, it is fine. Up to threshold level, it will be fine. This thyroxine is not doing only that activity, but they also act on the pituitary gland, and they are activating thyroid stimulating hormone. So as you know very well that thyroid stimulating hormone is actually released by the pituitary gland. This thyroid stimulating hormone plays several roles, like they increase iodination of the tyrosine to form the thyroid hormone. They increase activity of iodine pump. They are responsible for proteolysis of thyroglobulin, thyroid hormone into circulating body. Overall, the role of the thyroid stimulating hormone is they are activating, they are increasing the metabolism rate, they are activating the formation of thyroxine, and hence thyroxine level will be increased. It means thyroid stimulating hormone, as the name suggests, they stimulate thyroid to secrete more and more amount of thyroxine. If the level of thyroxine will be more, the basal metabolic rate will be increased. And due to increased basal metabolic rate, now body is no more require such metabolism. Then they are secreting certain inhibitory substances, and hence finally either hypothalamus or pituitary gland, they are going to be inhibited. And hence no more TSH is going to be released by the pituitary gland, and the level of thyroxine secretion by the thyroid is normal. So this is about the regulation of thyroid secretion. Now we'll discuss something about the vitamin D3 also. See, as you know, vitamin D3, which is formed in our body by the sunlight. Of course, sunlight is playing important role. But once vitamin D3 is formed, which is also known as cholecalciferol in the skin, now they enter into liver. In liver, this is converted into hydroxycholecalciferol. Now they pass to the kidney, where this is converted to dihydroxycholecalciferol. Then then it is passed to the intestinal epithelium, where this D3, vitamin D3 is playing important role in the calcium binding protein, calcium stimulated ATPase, as well as alkaline phosphatase. So overall phenomenon is, due to the vitamin D3, the intestinal absorption of calcium will be increased. It means your intestine is going to absorb more and more amount of the calcium. You can understand that if intestine will absorb more calcium, it means in the plasma calcium concentration will be increased. It means in the bone the calcium level is going to be decreased. Then in that case there is inhibition occurs, and finally parathyroid hormone is going to be inhibited. So the role of parathyroid hormone here is, they are responsible for the activation of absorption of calcium in the intestinal gut, that we discuss in the particular table. But if the the level of calcium will be more in the intestinal absorption or in the extracellular fluid, but less in the bone, then it is going to be, parathyroid hormone is going to be inhibited, and instead of that, calcitonin level will be going to be increases. This is how calcitonin and parathyroid hormone is going to be balanced. Clear? Now we'll discuss on hormonal disorder also, related to the parathyroid gland. See, due to disorder of parathyroid gland rickets, hypoparathyroidism and hyperparathyroidism occurs. Rickets occurs mainly in the children. It results from the calcium or phosphorus deficiency in the extracellular fluid, usually caused by the lack of vitamin D or D3. Then next is hypoparathyroidism. As the name suggests, hypo, less amount of parathyroid is going to be secreted. Okay, and hence the osteocytic reabsorption of exchangeable calcium ion decreases. Obviously, the level of calcium ion is going to be decreases. And another type is hyperparathyroidism. So in one case, parathyroidism, it means parathyroid level will be high, and another it is going to be less. But due to the hyper secretion, tumor formation might occur. Then we'll see a certain hormonal disorder which is related to the thyroid gland. Due to the thyroid gland hypothyroidism, one of the problem is hypothyroidism. It means the level of thyroxine or other hormone which is released by the thyroid is going to be secreted in very less amount. And hence, the poor ability to tolerate cold, tiredness, constipation, slow heart rate, depression, and weight gain occurs. It means all the activity related to the thyroid, that is basic metabolic rate, it is going to be decreased. Another type of problem is cretinism. Cretinism is basically caused by the extreme hypothyroidism. It means if the thyroid level is very decreasing, it means basic metabolic rate is decreasing, that is fine. But if it is up to extreme level in during the fetal life, it means it is a early stage before development. It is called fetal life. Or infancy, the failure of body growth occurs, mental retardation occurs, and hence, after the birth, the child will be mentally retarded. Okay. Now come to the exophthalmos. Exophthalmos is basically protrusion of eyeball. You can see in that figure also, it is exophthalmos. The eyeball is protrude out, bahar nikal jata hai. Okay, it's bulge out. So that is called exophthalmos. The next is thyrotoxicosis. And it is related to the toxicosis, which is related to the toxin only. It is toxin, it means toxic effect, I'm saying. It's a clinical stage of the hyperthyroidism. It means if the thyroid level will be increased in higher amount and it is reached to the clinical stage, then in that case a lot of problem occurs, because basic metabolic rate it will be too much high, and hence several type of disorder occurs. Now mixedema. Myxedema causes swelling of the skin and underlying tissue, giving a waxy consistency. So the skin becomes puffy. The body becomes puffy, skin becomes puffy, and waxy type of appearance occurs. Then next is goiter. Goiter is basically swelling of the skin, swelling of the neck resulting from an enlarged thyroid gland. It caused by the iodine deficiency, as you can see in the diagram. The next important hormone is hormone released by the adrenal cortex and medulla. Adrenal cortex releasing cortisol, aldosterone type of hormone. It has major function in the various metabolic function. They control metabolism of protein, carbohydrate, fat, and has anti-inflammatory effect also. Aldosterone increases renal absorption. Okay, renal absorption of sodium, it means renal sodium absorption. And come to the adrenal medulla, they are secreting norepinephrine and epinephrine type of hormone, which have several effects like increased heart rate, amount of blood pumping from the heart, blood pressure, etc. We are saying that epinephrine and norepinephrine are known as, along with the catecholamine, they are known as fight or flight responses. It is known for flight and fight or flight responses. As I think you know very well about the fight or flight. Okay, so whenever there is extreme, like in the fight, it's extreme. In the flight, you are extreme. On that time, body is balanced by the adrenal medullary secretion. Okay. If you see the adrenal cortex, you can find two layers of the cortex and three layers of the cortex. One is called zona glomerulosa, other is called fasciculata, and third is reticularis. So zona glomerulosa secrete aldosterone hormone, a type of mineral corticoids. Fasciculata secrete glucocorticoids such as cortisol, and zona reticularis secrete androgen hormone, mainly dihydroepiandrosterone type of hormone or DHEA sulfate, etc. Okay. Now see the regulation of adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is also regulated. As you know, adrenal cortex is responsible for the secretion of cortisol. Cortisol is responsible for several type of activity like glucogenesis, protein metabolism, fat metabolism, stabilizes lysosome, etc. Several role will be played by cortisol. But you know very well that our pituitary gland is releasing adrenocorticotropic hormone, and this is also stimulated by the hypothalamus. So the level of adrenocorticotropic hormone, if it will be increased, obviously the cortisol will be increased, and if it will be increased in the higher amount, then it is responsible for the inhibition of adrenal gland as well as pituitary gland as well as hypothalamus gland. So cortisol play a very important role in the regulation, which is shown in this diagram. Now, if you see the disorder related to the adrenal gland is Addison disease, Cushing syndrome, and adenocorticotropic hyperplasia. Addison's disease, it is developed when adrenal cortex fail to produce enough cortisol and aldosterone, reduces blood glucose level, lose body weight, pigmentation, vomiting, fever, etc. are related to the Addison's disease. Then Cushing syndrome that we have already studied. We have already studied in the pituitary gland because if pituitary is going to be fail, obviously uh, pituitary is directly related to the adrenal gland. So Cushing syndrome may occurs by the disorders occurs in the pituitary gland or it is related to the adrenal. In both conditions, they are having the same effect. The next is adenocortical hyperplasia. Actually, mutation in the enzyme that produces steroid hormone results in the glucocorticoid deficiency and malfunctioning of the negative feedback loop of HPA axis. First, you should know about the HPA axis. HPA axis is related to the HP is hypothalamus, then A is anterior pituitary, followed by the adrenal gland. So you know very well that hypothalamus control anterior pituitary control adrenal gland cortex, and adrenal cortex is releasing cortisol. So the amount of cortisol is not only dependent on adrenal gland. Obviously, it is actually regulated by adrenal pituitary as well as hypothalamus. Okay. So any type of disorder which is related to the HPA axis is basically, there are several type of disorder. So it is one of the disorder is related to the HPA axis is adenocortical hyperplasia. Other type of glands are pancreas. Pancreas releases two type of hormone, insulin and glucagon. Insulin released by the beta cell and glucagon released by the alpha cell. Beta cell promote glucose entry into many cells, and in this way they control carbohydrate metabolism.
Not audible. Hello, sir. Hello. Hello. Ini nggak good buat. Look up.
अरे व्हाट्सएप हेलो रवि सर आपके सर
Not audio.
नो सर participant please wait just a minute I think screen share is stopped just Ravi sir is again sharing the stop sharing the PPT please just wait for 1 minute participant now it is visible
From which slide I should start? Anyone can message.
participant please tell me now it is visible
Yes, sir.
From which
Okay.
slide I should start?
Sir, from the pancreas one.
Pancreas one. Thank you. Okay, fine. So we should start again with the pancreas. Pancreas gland is secreting two type of hormone, insulin as well as glucagon. Insulin hormone is basically secreted by beta cell, whereas glucagon will be secreted by alpha cells. Insulin is responsible for the maintenance of glucose level in the blood, whereas glucagon playing important role in just opposite role of insulin. It means it increases blood glucose level. Clear? How they are maintaining? So they release glucose from the liver into the body fluid. You can see here in the diagram that when insulin will bind to the receptors, they are responsible for several functions. One of them is they are responsible for the activation of glucose transporter, which bind to the membrane and they allow entry of glucose. So glucose entry, it means uptaken of the glucose will be increased by this insulin. Okay. Now, if you are talking regarding the disorders of the pancreas, so there are two type of diabetes 1 and diabetes 2. Diabetes 1, it is diabetes 1 is basically, it is also known as IDDM, insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Earlier I discussed on diabetes insipidus. This is the in diabetes mellitus. It is caused by the lack of insulin secretion. So in diabetes 1, level of insulin secretion is less and hence blood glucose level will be obviously rise. But if I am going to talk on type 2 type of diabetes, it is non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. It means there is no deficiency of insulin, but sensitivity towards insulin is going to be decreases and hence it is also called insulin resistance. Means insulin is present, but it is not sensitized, it is not received and hence type 2 diabetes occurs. Then next is insulinoma. Just a minute. Insulinoma, hyperinsulinism. It is basically excessive insulin production from the adenoma of an islet of Langerhans. It means in the islet of Langerhans in the pancreas, basically adenoma type of tumor formation occurs and they are deregulating insulin production and excessive insulin production occurs. Clear? Next is hypoglycemia, where blood sugar level is going to be decreased. Next is gestational diabetes, which occurs in the pregnant women. Women without diabetes develop high blood sugar. So it's not a regular diabetes. During gestational period, that is in the pregnancy, the blood glucose level is high. But in 99.99% cases, gestational diabetes is going to be overcome after the birth of the child. Next is glucagonoma. It's again type of tumor which is responsible for the overproduction of the hormone glucagon. Okay. Next is placenta. Placenta secretes several type of hormone like HCG, human choriogonadotropin hormone, human somatomamotropin hormone, estrogen and progesterone. HCG, human choriogonadotropin hormone, is very important to understand that the level is normally nil in the blood and hence whenever you are going to test it, it is not showing. But their level will be suddenly high, which is high because of pregnancy. So when implantation occurs, due to implantation, the implantation in the uterine wall is start secreting SCG hormone. Their level will be high in the blood as well as in the body fluid, and hence people are using SCG in the pregnancy strip test. In the pregnancy strip test, that strip is basically for the recognition of human choriogonadotropin hormone, whose level is high in the morning urine. Okay. Next is somatomamotropin. It helps to promote development of some fetal tissue as well as mother's breast also. Then estrogen and progesterone, two important hormone. Estrogen is basically responsible for the growth and development of female reproductive system, very important hormone. And it is also playing important role in the female breast, female secondary sexual characters. Whereas progesterone hormone is responsible for the secretion of uterine milk. Uterine milk is basically nutrition provided by the uterine, it means secreted by the uterus, and it is provided to the or available to the fetus. Clear? In the early development time. So that is called uterine milk by the uterine endometrial gland. Now next is hormones released by the testis and ovary. Testis releases testosterone, which promote the development of male reproductive system and male secondary sexual character also. Estrogen and progesterone is not only released by the ovaries, we also discussed that this is also released by the placenta. So we have already understand that estrogen, progesterone have several type of role, released by either placenta or by ovary or by some other organ, which we will study later. Clear? Then hormones released by the kidney and heart. Kidney is releasing renin, then dihydroxycholecalciferol and erythropoietin. Renin, as we know very well, they catalyze the conversion of angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Dihydroxycalciferol is responsible for increased intestinal absorption of calcium, which we have already studied in vitamin D3 regulation. Then erythropoietin increases erythrocyte production. And antinatriuretic factor is responsible for reducing blood pressure. So here, blood pressure is reduced by the antinatriuretic factor, and earlier we have already studied that blood pressure is going to be, see, I'm just going to show here in the previous slides. Okay, that is okay, fine. Leave it because it will take more time to discuss on that part. But remember, heart is playing important role in the reduction of blood pressure. It is just a maintenance of blood pressure. Okay. Now come to other type of hormone released by the stomach. Stomach releases gastrin, which stimulate HCl secretion by the parietal cells. Okay. Secretin hormone released by the small intestine are basically stimulating pancreatic acinar cell to release bicarbonate and water. Whereas cholecystokinin is a hormone released by the small intestine, they are responsible to stimulate gallbladder contraction and release of the pancreatic enzymes. Clear? It means whenever food enters in our body and they enter in the stomach, see after entry only, cholecystokinin is going to be activated and they stimulate gallbladder contraction and release of pancreatic enzymes also, so that when food enter into a small intestine, then pancreatic enzymes should be available. Yeah. Adipocyte, this is a gland which secrete hormone leptin. It inhibit appetite and stimulate thermogenesis. Now there are certain questions which we are going to cover related to the hormone. There are few questions asked from the hormones but if I'm saying hormone related to the reproductive biology, the number of questions are too much. It means the direct questions are also asked from the hormones, and if I'm relating this reproductive hormones, then the questions, number of questions will be too much high. So first we'll see one of the direct questions which was asked in CSR June 2016. Which of the following option correctly relate the source gland or organ with its respective hormone as well as function? So you can see several options are there: thyroid, anterior pituitary, then posterior pituitary, and corpus luteum. Okay. You have to think that which one is correct, clear, correctly related. So you can work it out. You'll find that the third one, that is posterior pituitary, is correct. They are basically releasing hormone, that is fine vasopressin, and they are responsible for the reabsorption of water in the distal tubule. In other, there are certain problems like thyroxine is not related to the calcium. It is related to the basic basal metabolic rate. Then uterine contraction of uterine muscle is not directly related to the oxytocin. Like in the same way, estrogen hormone is not supporting pregnancy. It is progesterone. Oh yes, it is supporting, but progesterone is the main one. Okay. So either source is wrong or function is wrong, that you have to take care. Clear? Next is, which of the following hormone is responsible for mobilizing calcium and from bone and increasing urinary excretion of phosphate? Okay. As you know, this is direct question from parathyroid hormone, and hence answer will be 3. Parathyroid hormone is also known as parathormone. Other question asked from again from that CSR is CSR December 2016. You can check which type of cells located in the gastric gland is responsible for the release of histamine. This is a very different question, histamine. But some of the questions can be solved by elimination. See, mucous neck cell is related to the mucus. Chief cell, parietal cell, as you know, that is directly related to the digestive system. Okay. Parietal cell, it is responsible for the HCl secretion. Chief cell, they are basically responsible for the secretion of pepsinogen. So the only option remaining will be enterochromaffin-like cells. So that looks to be new, but we know that other three have different roles. So answer must be enterochromaffin-like cells. Clear? So elimination must be needed for attempting some of the questions. Now we are going to talk on other part, that is reproductive biology. Here again we are going to discuss on the role of hormone in the reproduction. So along with the reproductive biology, you have to understand about the role of hormone also. Clear? This is reproductive system of male, where I have shown urethra, scrotum, glands, penis, etc. No need to discuss because this is the part of 12th biology and everything. I think you know about all these things. You can refer also, you will understand. See, the only part that you need to understand is the structure. Here, a little bit structure, especially formation of sperm. See, the questions are generally asked from the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So I'm going to focus on those part only from where questions are asked in the examination. You can see the structure of testis here. Clear? In the testis, seminiferous tubules are present. There are different lobes, and each lobe, there this is lobes. In each lobe, seminiferous tubules are present. Within the seminiferous tubule, spermatogenesis occurs. So after the testis, you can see here it is epididymis, then it will be followed by ductus deferens, yeah, vas deferens, and rest other diagram I will show here. You can see here also vas deferens, it will go up to the up, and finally several glands are also participated here. The one is prostate gland, bulbourethral gland. So other than the gland we have already studied, some other glands are also there like prostate and bulbourethral gland that we'll discuss soon. See, testis is basically responsible for spermatozoa, it means sperm production. Seminal vesicle, where sperm is going to be stored, are providing amino acid, citrate, enzyme, flavin, fructose. This question is important. Fructose. Fructose will be supplied by. So fructose will be supplied by, ये question कई बार पूछा है. Fructose will be supplied by seminal vesicle. Then protein, vitamin C, phosphorylcholine, phosphatidylines, etc. Prostaglandins, etc. Again, prostaglandins is also very important. तो ये इसमें आप दो पॉइंट याद रखिएगा, fructose as well as prostaglandin. The next is other gland is prostate gland. Prostate gland is basically secreting acid phosphatase, citric acid, fibrinolysin, then prostate specific antigen, etc. Next is bulbourethral glands. Again, this is important because they are providing mucus and along with that galactose. So questions may be asked mostly from this part, bulbourethral gland or seminal vesicle. Okay. Now come to the other part. See, this is the female reproductive system where you can find vagina, then cervical region, then this is uterus, uterine wall, endometrium, myometrium, etc. This is also shown here. And then this is oviduct area. After this oviduct, you can find the ovaries also. Clear? In the ovary, ovulation occurs. So initially you will find that there is a primary follicle present, and this primary follicle is going to be enlarged in the size, and it will grow, which is known as growing follicle, mature, which is known as mature follicle, and the largest size of the mature follicle is known as Graafian follicle. After that, it is going to be burst out with the help of hormone known as luteinizing hormone, and the remnant will be converted into corpus luteum, which secrete estrogen and progesterone. Okay. So we have to next study about the gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is the genesis of gamete. It means sperm formation by male and ovum formation by female. Okay, mitosis, as you know, it is also important, but gamete formation is related to the meiosis. But those cells which are participate in the meiosis, that is germinal cell, they also maintain their number by mitosis process. It means primordial cells will maintain their number by mitosis process. Clear? And once meiosis occurs, they directly lead to the formation of germ cells. Clear? Sperm produced in the testes, ova produced in the ovaries. Okay, let's see the further details. I will start with the spermatogenesis. See, spermatogenesis begin with the spermatogonia. Spermatogonia is diploid and they maintain their own number by the help of mitosis. It is important to know here that mitosis is important here. Otherwise, at one time, million of the sperms are released. If I am saying that millions of the sperms are released, obviously the loss of a spermatogonia occurs in millions. And in the human, up to the lifetime, the sperm formation occurs. It means after the maturation age till their death, sperm formation occurs. So several billion sperms or more than that sperms might be released. So how this sperm will maintain their number? Obviously by mitosis process. Then this is spermatogonia. They maintain their own number. And once some of them, some it means again it is in millions, some of them which is activated by testosterone hormone, they are known as spermatocyte. Up to here it is diploid because this is just a chosen one, selected one. And hence the size of the primary spermatocyte is increased. This is how primary spermatocyte differ from spermatogonia, but rest everything is same. They are the chosen one, and then they participate in the meiosis process. After meiosis, the reduction division occurs. Two daughter cell will be produced, which is known as secondary spermatocyte, and meiosis 2 lead to the four spermatid formation. Spermatid is going to form sperm by several process. Actually, this is a process in which the shape size is going to be changed. And this process is known as spermiogenesis. So spermiogenesis is basically conversion of spermatid into spermatozoa. Clear? Questions might be asked from spermiogenesis. It is important to understand. Spermiogenesis is basically conversion of spermatid to spermatozoa. Once sperm is formed, then on that time in the upper area that is called head, then next is neck, then then after the neck there is a tail. One question asked from the mitochondria where it is located. It is located in the neck region. In the head you can find nucleus, and in the upper region of the head acrosomes are present which play important role in the acrosomal reaction during fertilization. And in the tail, you can find 9 plus 2 arrangement of the microtubules, which we have seen already in the cilia as well as flagella. Now, once spermatogenesis is going to occur in the seminiferous tubule, it is actually nourished by the Sertoli cells. So, nourishment will be provided by Sertoli cells, and after this nourishment, this sperm will be released. Clear? Now, if you look out the hormones which is playing important role in the spermatogenesis is follicle stimulating hormone as well as testosterone. Follicle stimulating hormone which is released from the anterior pituitary, and testosterone hormone, it is produced by the testes. Okay, important male hormone. Remember, our Leydig cells are also known as interstitial cell. They secrete androgen hormone. Okay. Among different androgen hormone, the main one is testosterone hormone. This testosterone is playing important role in the spermatogenesis process. Clear? Sertoli cells I have already discussed. Now you can see overall control of the spermatogenesis process. This is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, as you know, they are releasing or inhibitory type of hormone. So they secrete releasing also. You can find here gonadotropin releasing type of hormone. It means the hormone which is released by the hormone by hypothalamus. They acting on anterior pituitary. They activate anterior pituitary to release gonadal hormone. So gonadal hormones are follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone secreted by anterior pituitary, and anterior pituitary is commanded by hypothalamus using gonadotropin releasing hormone. Clear? Once FSH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone will be secreted, you can find here that luteinizing hormone, that is LH, L for luteinizing and L for Leydig. You should remember, luteinizing hormone act on the Leydig cells, and hence These latetic cells activated to secrete androgen, mainly testosterone. Testosterone alone cannot participate in the spermatogenesis process. They need help of androgen binding protein, which is secreted by the Sertoli cells. So basically, when follicle stimulating hormone will be secreted, they act on the Sertoli cells. Sertoli cell becomes activated. They releases androgen binding protein, and with the help of androgen binding protein or testosterone binding protein, testosterone will bind, and finally they are responsible for the spermatogenesis process. But if testosterone may not be needed more because spermatogenesis occurs, sperm will be formed in enough amount, and there is no more role played by the testosterone. Their level is already high, so they are playing negative feedback role. Testosterone bind on hypothalamus and anterior pituitary as a negative feedback inhibition. Besides this, Sertoli cell also releases inhibin hormone, and this inhibin hormone is responsible for the negative feedback on anterior pituitary gland. Now, you can see here, this picture I have already explained, but there are certain important things that you should know, that what is primordial germ cell, oogonia, primary oocytes, etc. So these things, it will be more clear in this diagram. You can see here. You have to see oogenesis process very carefully because two events going simultaneously. One is the follicular development and other is the ovum, the development of core part, that is ovum. Okay, it's going simultaneously. If you see the exactly developmental part, before birth only the oogonium is developed, and not only that, they convert into primary oocyte and they are arrested in the meiosis one stage. It means all the primary oocytes are arrested in the meiosis 1, means these cells cross G1 phase, S phase, G2 phase, and they arrest in the meiosis 1 stage. They are present in the ready form position. Okay, arrested. And after birth, there is no more repetition of cycle. It means there is no more mitosis, there are no more cell cycle is going to occur. There are on an average 45,000 oogonia cells are present and all are arrested in the meiosis 1. Clear? When birth occurs, after the birth, this cell will be remain as such, right? But after maturity it means when estrogen level will be high than threshold value, then this primary oocytes participate in the meiosis division. Meiosis 1 continue. Meiosis 1 lead to the formation of two polar bodies. Two cell. One is called polar body and other is called secondary oocytes. So primary oocytes are converted into secondary oocytes. Again, secondary oocytes will be arrested again. It means the cell will be again arrested, and until and unless the sperm is not going to be penetrate to the ovum, complete meiosis do not occur. It means during menstrual cycle normally, the whatever the ovum we are saying, that is not ovum, that is actually secondary oocytes. So we are, in general term we are saying ovum, it is actually secondary oocytes. Clear? Ovulation occurs, but it is in the stage of secondary oocytes only. Meiosis 2 is not going to be completed. Okay. Parallelly, as I said that the follicles are growing, primary, then growing follicle, Graafian follicle, and finally ovulation occurs. The difference between spermatogenesis and oogenesis is all the see, in the case of especially spermatogenesis, all four products of meiosis develop in the sperm. It means one cell will make completely four cell, but in case of egg cell, that is oogenesis, only one egg cell will be present and rest three is considered as polar bodies, and of course they become degenerated. Spermatogenesis occurs throughout the adolescence, whole life. But in case of female, oogenesis is restricted and generally menopause occurs at the age of 45 to 50. Now we'll cover some questions of the CSR. See, the primary oocytes, okay, just a minute. The primary oocytes prior to sperm entry is arrested at what stage of the cell division? ये question पूछा हुआ है. So just now we discussed primary oocytes कहाँ arrest होगा. So it's a
Answer
direct
C.
question. Yes, very good. You are replying. Then you can reply to the next one also. During gametogenesis in male, cell during development are termed as primary spermatocytes when they are. Okay. So in gametogenesis in male, question समझो, है ना? Cell during development are termed as primary spermatocytes. तो primary spermatocytes कब तक बोलेंगे? You know very well that once, हाँ, ठीक ठीक, you're right. Before meiosis one. You're right. You're right. This is a big question, but whenever you can see bigger question, you have to apply tricks. 4 marks question का है ये. सी इसको रीड करते करते आप थक जाओगे, इसलिए हमेशा लास्ट वाला पार्ट ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है रीड करना. अपर वन इज इंफॉर्मेशन लाइक स्पर्मेटोगोनियल स्टेम सेल अंडरगो, ये CSR के जो बड़े क्वेश्चन है उनमें एक है. स्पर्मेटोगोनियल स्टेम सेल अंडरगोज एक्सटेंसिव मेटामॉर्फोसिस टू बिकम ए स्पर्मेटोजोआ. ठीक है, ये इंफॉर्मेशन है. Meiosis lead to the formation of spermatid containing 22 ऑटोसोम एंड 1 सेक्स क्रोमोसोम. सिंपल है, meiosis हुआ, स्पर्मेटिड बने, स्पर्मेटिड से ही स्पर्म बनता है. तो स्पर्मेटिड्स में कितने हो गए? हाफ ऑफ द सेल होंगे, 23 क्रोमोसोम होंगे, 22 ऑटोसोम है और एक सेक्स क्रोमोसोम है. आइदर अभी ये जो एक सेक्स क्रोमोसोम है या एक्स हो सकता है या वाई हो सकता है, राइट? अब अगला क्वेश्चन समझो, यहाँ तक तो जनरल था. A male mouse was found in a colony which always produces only female puff upon mating. यानी एक मेल माउस है, अगर मेल है तो उसके पास एक्स वाई होगा. अब म्योसिस करने के बाद जब स्पर्म बनाए तो उसके स्पर्म में एक्स भी हो सकते हैं, वाई भी हो सकता है, ठीक है. लेकिन जब भी वो मेटिंग में पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं ओनली फीमेल पफ बन रहे हैं, मेल बन नहीं रहा है. वो वाई को हुआ क्या? तो विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज अ पॉसिबल रीजन, क्या कारण हो सकता है कि ओनली फीमेल बन रहे हैं? तो
Answer
आंसर
C.
पढ़ते हैं. सी स्पर्मियोजेनेसिस वाज डिफेक्टिव, ऐसा तो हो नहीं सकता, नहीं तो फीमेल कैसे बनते? ऑल स्पर्मेटोगोनियल स्टेम सेल कंटेन ओनली एक्स एंड नो वाई, ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता. एक्स वाई बनने तो दोनों है, क्योंकि म्योसिस होगा तो दोनों को सेपरेट होना ही है. Activation of Y chromosome linked post-meiotic death related gene may lead to such situation. हाँ, ये हो सकता है. मतलब Y linked post-meiotic death related gene का एक्टिवेशन, यानी कि आप post-meiotic death, meiosis के बाद Y वाले somehow डेथ कर रहे हैं. X तो डेथ कर नहीं सकते, 4 is not possible. X डेथ करते तो फीमेल कैसे होती? So answer will be 3. Good one. Now come to the hormonal control of oogenesis. See, for oogenesis process, hypothalamus is releasing gonadotropin releasing hormone, right? Which bind on the anterior pituitary releasing LH and FSH. See, due to the LH and FSH, several process occurs. सबसे पहले मैं start करता हूँ estrogen level से. See, when estrogen level will be low, then slowly graphene follicle development occurs. Clear? It is continuously going to be increased. The size of the follicle is increasing, it means follicle stimulating hormone is working. And after a particular time being, LH hormone play important role in the surge, LH surge, ovulation occurs, and this follicle is going to be busted out. Ovulation occurs. And the remnant is converted into corpus luteum. Here you have to remember one point, that level of estrogen is very important. That I will go in detail in the next slide, okay, how this estrogen level is playing important role in the control of oogenesis process. First we will see the ovarian cycle. In the ovarian cycle, as we have gone through these things, that hypothalamus and anterior pituitary is there, right? Hypothalamus is inhibited by combination of estradiol and progesterone. Estradiol is estrogen. So estrogen progesterone combination दोगे तो hypothalamus क्या हो जाएगा? Inhibit हो जाएगा. Clear? But stimulated by high level of estrogen. So only estrogen can stimulate, but combination can inhibit. And if you are thinking about anterior pituitary, so it is inhibited by low level of estrogen. So it is very complicated to understand, but slowly and slowly we'll understand. See, FSH and LH both are released by the anterior pituitary, right? The level will be increased at different time But on the day of 14th day, when ovulation occurs, you can see LH level is high. It means luteinizing hormone play important role in the surge that is bursting of this follicle. On that time, follicle stimulating hormone will also little bit high, but not as high as LH. Clear? You are having different phases like follicular phase, ovulation, and luteal phase. In the follicular phase, of course, follicle developed. In the ovulation phase, ovulation occurs. In the luteal phase, corpus luteum formed. Okay. Now, if you see the level of estrogen and progesterone, initially estrogen level will be low and slowly it becomes high. Okay. So peak causes LH surge. So when estrogen level will be high, then LH level is also going to be high. So the peak of estrogen is playing important role in the LH surge. It means ovulation. Clear? Progesterone level will be low initially. Later on, it is going to be high. We will understand how it is level going to be high also in the next phase. But first here, my target is to make you understand about the level of estrogen. See, there are certain specific point. Immature follicle have receptors for the follicle stimulating hormone, but not for the luteinizing hormone. It means when initially follicle will be developed, they have receptor for FSH. It means they respond to FSH, but do not respond to LH. So thou both is released, but initially when follicle is very small, on that time, that means immature, on that time they are basically responding to FSH. Now LH is high, but they are not responding to LH because no receptors are there in initially in the immature follicle. Clear? FSH stimulate follicular growth. ये आप जानते हो. Here the important point is low level of estrogen have negative feedback on the LH and FSH. If the estrogen level will be low, so they have negative feedback. It means estrogen level will be low, then LH and FSH level will be also low. Because estrogen will play negative feedback, it will bind to the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary and they decrease the level of FSH and LH. But in the next slide, you will understand that low estrogen having negative feedback. But if the estrogen concentration will be high, they have positive feedback. So when estrogen level will be high, on that time, they have positive feedback. It means they stimulate our hypothalamus and anterior pituitary to release LH and FSH. And hence, with the increase of estrogen, you can find that LH and FSH is also increased. Clear? So that is very important to take care. Clear? The next is it is going to be decreased. LH and FSH both is going to be decreased. We'll move to the next phase. Is in the next phase, you can find that luteinizing hormone luteinizes remaining follicle tissue into corpus luteum. So luteinizing hormone have two roles. One is LH surge and other is formation of corpus luteum. Clear? Corpus luteum will be formed. It secrete estrogen and progesterone. So once corpus luteum will be formed, they are secreting higher amount of progesterone necessary for pregnancy. Okay, as well as necessary for maintenance of endometrium wall. So this endometrium wall is basically maintained by level of progesterone. And of course, it will be followed by estrogen also. Clear? But what happens is corpus luteum slowly is going to be deteriorated and at the end this corpus luteum is deteriorated or degraded. Once it is totally deteriorated, it means there is no other support of progesterone and estrogen. No one is secreting progesterone, estrogen. Their level is going to be down. Once their level is down, progesterone and estrogen level, especially progesterone is totally down. On that time, this minimum level of estrogen will stimulate follicle stimulation. याद रखिएगा अगर एस्ट्रोजन का लेवल हाई रहेगा प्राइमरी फॉलिकल नहीं बनेंगे ठीक है सो रिमेंबर द लेवल इज डाउन एस्ट्रोजन का लेवल डाउन हुआ सो नेक्स्ट प्राइमरी फॉलिकल इज गोइंग टू बी डेवलप्ड क्लियर overall diagram if you see, so follicle stimulating hormone was initially high because they are responsible for follicular development. In the 14th day, ovulation occurs when FSH, LH, estrogen all should be high. Clear? Another role inhibin is also present, but I am not going to discuss here about the inhibin. And later on, Once corpus luteum will be formed, they releases progesterone. So progesterone level will be high. They also releases estrogen. Their level is also high. But later on, with the deterioration of corpus luteum, their level is going to be decreases. And once their level decrease, it means progesterone decrease, no one is able to maintain wall. This wall is actually deteriorated, and hence deterioration of wall is known as menses. And hence, along with the blood vessel which is present in the uterine wall, this cells also deteriorated out, and menstrual cycle occurs for the 0 to 5 days. In certain cases may run up to 7, but in general it is 0 to 5 days. Okay. Now I have some question. We'll take one more question. So the question is again same. It's a big question, but initial information initial is information based only. See, just a minute. Level of follicle stimulating hormone during infancy and adulthood is same. यानी बच्चा है या उनका जन्म ले लिया, इन्फेंट है या एडल्ट है या बच्चा हो, दोनों में फॉलिकल स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन का लेवल सेम है. बट स्पर्मेटोजेनेसिस इज सीन ओनली ड्यूरिंग एडल्टहुड. लेकिन स्पर्मेटोजेनेसिस तो केवल एडल्टहुड में हो रहा है. तो साइंटिस्ट को फाइंड आउट करना है ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है. ठीक है. mRNA level coding for the FSH receptors are also found to be same. यानी FSH भी ठीक है और FSH का रिसेप्टर भी ठीक है. कैसे पता चला? mRNA level will be fine. तो कोई साइंटिस्ट कैसे वर्कआउट करेगा? FSH ठीक है, रिसेप्टर ठीक है, वो क्या सोचकर काम करेगा? We can see here. The answer, there are 4 options. Culture testicular cell and add luteinizing hormone to see testosterone. कोई मतलब नहीं है luteinizing hormone का, यहाँ कोई रोल में ही नहीं है. Then next is culture testicular cell and add testosterone to see comparative rise of the FSH mRNA. ये सोचो आप. नेक्स्ट आप सोचिए कि लेकिन एक इसमें प्रॉब्लम है, कल्चर टेस्टिकुलर सेल एंड एड टेस्टोस्टेरोन, ये बीच में कहाँ से आया? ये भी काम का नहीं है. थर्ड वन इज इंपॉर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट कल्चर टेस्टिकुलर सेल, टेस्टिस से ले लीजिए, एड एफ एस एच डालना है और आपको देखना है कि एफ एस एच अगर रिसेप्टर पे बाइंड कर रहा है तो सिग्नल ट्रांसडक्शन, एफ एस एच इज हार्मोन, इफ दे बाइंड टू रिसेप्टर signal transduction occurs and cyclic AMP which is secondary messenger is going to be increased. तो आपको देखना है कि whether ligand and receptor both are correct. तो अगर both correct है तो क्या cyclic AMP का लेवल बढ़ता है या नहीं बढ़ता है? So this will be your experimental part. थोड़ा सा सोचना पड़ेगा, but it is good if you are continuously attempting some questions like this. Your mind will be make up in such a way that you are able to attempt such questions. Okay. Next is capacitation. Capacitation is the ultimate step in the maturation of mammalian sperm and is required to render them competent to fertilize and oocytes. Especially mammalian sperm में ऐसा देखा गया है most of the time. ठीक है, that it is the ultimate step. It means ultimate step for the maturation. Actually, when sperm enter into the vagina and they bind to the ovum, on that time they require certain type of modification which occurs by capacitation. Clear? So it occurs in vivo and in vitro condition both. In vivo, that is in natural condition, when sperm enter into the vagina, on that time there are certain type of changes occurs. Okay, and hence it occurs in the oviduct. ये reproductive tract में ही होगा. Clear? ध्यान दीजिएगा, the superior female reproductive tract. Now next is, इसको आपको ध्यान इसलिए देना है कि इससे रिलेटेड एक और क्वेश्चन है. When it enter into vagina and enter in the superior female reproductive tract, then capacitation occurs. Whereas अगर आप यहाँ देखो इन विट्रो फर्टिलाइजेशन, इट मीन्स इन द लेबोरेटरी IVF टेक्निक के समय, on that time capacitation occurs by incubating sperm or spermatozoa in a defined medium for several hours. So they are also providing certain defined medium so that capacitation occurs. So it affects destabilization of acrosomal sperm head membrane, chemical changes in the tail that allow greater mobility of the sperm, increase intracellular cyclic AMP level that increases motility, etc. Now there is an enzyme FPP, that is tripeptide fertilization promoting peptide FPP, that produce in the prostate gland is essential for controlling capacitation. Capacitation के लिए FPP एक important है, ठीक है, पेप्टाइड है. Now again one question asked that capacitation of a sperm in human, कहाँ होता है capacitation? सोचिए.
Oviduct. Answer C.
Yeah, right. Very good. Oviduct. Answer C. Now next is, in an experiment, the sperm removed from epididymis of a male mouse was added in a dish. Again थोड़ा बड़ा क्वेश्चन है, ध्यान से पढ़ना होगा. Sperm removed from epididymis. Sperm बनता कहाँ है? सेमिनिफेरस ट्यूब्यूल में. स्टोर कहाँ होते हैं? एपिडाइडमिस में. वहाँ से हमने डायरेक्टली रिमूव कर लिया इन अ डिश कंटेनिंग अप्रोप्रिएट मीडिया एंड oocytes. वहाँ मीडिया भी है, oocytes भी है, ठीक है, oocytes रेडी है. No fertilization was seen. However, when sperm from epididymis were directly placed in the uterus में placed हुआ है, of an ovulated female, she became pregnant. So the observation suggests that, तो अगर हम sperm को निकाल कर और फिर हम डिश में यानी कि इन विट्रो प्लेट में रख दिए डायरेक्टली, तो फर्टिलाइज नहीं हुआ, इसका मतलब है कुछ ना कुछ मिसिंग है. एंड इफ यू आर पुटिंग देम इनटू द यूटेरस, इट बिकम्स फर्टिलाइज. हाउ? तो इट सजेस्ट दैट, पढ़िए, द स्पर्म नीड टू ट्रैवल सम डिस्टेंस टू अटेन फर्टिलाइजिंग एबिलिटी. स्पर्म को ट्रैवल करना जरूरी है, ऐसा तो है नहीं, हमने तो डायरेक्ट यूटेरस में रखा है. सेकेंड इज द oocyte secrete some biochemical or factors which help sperm to fertilize. बोल रहे हैं oocyte कुछ सीक्रेट करते होंगे, वो तो दोनों साइड है. The hormone in the body help sperm to attain fertilizing ability. बॉडी में कोई तो हार्मोन है जो फर्टिलाइजेशन के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल है. एंड नेक्स्ट इज द कंटेंट ऑफ फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव ट्रैक्ट इंटरैक्ट विद द स्पर्म एंड एक्टिवेट फॉर द फर्टिलाइजेशन. कुछ ना कुछ फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव ट्रैक्ट में है जो स्पर्म को एक्टिवेट कर रहा है. आंसर आपको क्लियर हो गया, इट इज फोर्थ नंबर. ये कैपेसिटेशन से ही रिलेटेड है, क्योंकि आपने डायरेक्टली वहाँ रख दिया, सीधा उठाकर यूट्रस में रख दिया. जब वो एंटर में करेगा इसमें ओविडक्ट में, तो ऑब्वियसली कैपेसिटेशन ऑकर्स एंड हेंस दे आर एबल टू fertilize. Clear? Now come to the acrosomal reaction. As you know, in the sperm head, acrosomes are present. Acrosomal reaction occurs. They will first bind to the corona radiata, then zona pellucida is in the next layer. Okay. And then they will interact with the vitelline membrane. So in the acrosomal reaction, there are several things that you should know. Number one is glycoprotein on the outer surface of the sperm bind to the glycoprotein of the zona pellucida of the ovum. यानी स्पर्म्स के भी बाहर जो उनके जो आउटर सरफेस हैं, दे हैव ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन ऑन जोना पेलुसिडा है, दे हैव आल्सो ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन. द ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन इज इंपॉर्टेंट, राइट? मेनी क्वेश्चन आस्क्ड फ्रॉम दिस ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन. ZP3 is one of the protein that make up the zona pellucida, bind to the partner molecule to the beta 1,4 galactosyl transferase receptor on the sperm. तो अब आप ZP3 के बारे में देखो. इट इज वन ऑफ द प्रोटीन दैट मेक द जोना पेलुसिडा. जोना पेलुसिडा रीजन कई सारे प्रोटीन से बने हैं, ZP1, ZP2, ZP3 एटसेट्रा. द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वन इज ZP3. क्लियर? So binding triggers the acrosome to release the enzyme hyaluronidase. So hyaluronidase and acrosine is present in the sperm. So when acrosomal reaction occurs, the upper membrane, acrosomal membrane will burst out, and the two enzyme, that is hyaluronidase and acrosine, will be released. And this two will actually having counter effect on the female ovum. Female ovum में इसका duct just opposite है, hyaluronic acid है, and acrosomal lysine के अपोजिट साइड में अगर आप देखो तो जोना पेलुसिडा है. तो both are going to bind to the opposite one. Hyaluronic acid of the female is deactivated by hyaluronidase, whereas ZP3 is deactivated by acrosine, or actually it is acrosine. Somewhere some other names are also given, fertilizing and defertilizing, but you can say it is acrosine. Okay, also known as sperm lysine. So they prevent polyspermy. There is a polyspermy prevention. It means millions of the sperms are entered. Obviously, out of millions, only hundreds, a few hundreds will be survive, and most will die due to the acidic pH in the female vagina and macrophages present. But those who survive in hundreds, they may enter into the simultaneously enter into the ovum. So more than one ovum should not be entered. Otherwise, what is going to happen is in the sperm, 23 chromosome is present. In the ovum, 23 is present. So if one sperm will be entered, it becomes 46. That is fine. If more than one sperm will be entered, then 23, 23, 23 occurs. So it is related to the increase in the number of the chromosome, and hence the person will either defective or not survived. Clear? So it can be prevented, and it is called prevention of polyspermy. So ovastatin, it's a zinc metalloendoprotease that cleaves ZP2 to prevent sperm binding. Okay, sperm binding can be prevented. Once a sperm will be bind, then ovastatin is released and they prevent sperm binding. It's a marker of mammalian cortical granule which prevent polyspermy. So ovastatin is basically preventing polyspermy. Other questions are also there. Again, during fertilization in mammals, sperm-egg interaction is mediated by zona pellucida membrane protein and their receptor present in the sperm membrane. ये सब पढ़ने का ही नहीं है, फिर भी मैं एक बार रीड कर देता हूँ. ZP3 has been identified to be principal ZP protein whose post-translation modification is important for the sperm-egg interaction. Up to here, it is just information. Okay, just information. Now, question will start from here. In a competitive inhibition assay, the sperm is saturated with either the active ZP3, यानी sperm को ZP3 के साथ या तो एक्टिवेट कर दिया, सैचुरेट कर दिया, ठीक है, और इट्स मॉडिफाइड फॉर्म ZP3 जैसे ही दूसरे, ठीक है, sperm है दूसरी तरफ ZP3 है, that is fine. Before studying sperm egg interaction, which of the following experiment will not inhibit sperm egg interaction? तो अब आपको ये देखना है कि कौन नॉट है. नॉट वाले काफ़ी खतरनाक हैं. नॉट इनहिबिट स्पर्म एग इंट्रैक्शन. सैचुरेट स्पर्म विद ZP3 प्रोटीन प्रायर टू यूज. आप बोल रहे हैं आप पहले यूज करके देख लो. दूसरा है डी ग्लाइकोसाइलेट द ZP3 प्रोटीन एंड यूज इट फॉर सैचुरेशन. तीसरा है फॉस्फोलेट द ZP3 प्रोटीन और चौथा है डी फॉस्फोलेट द ZP3 प्रोटीन. इसका जो आंसर है, इसके लिए आपको डी ग्लाइकोलाइसिलेशन में क्यों जाना चाहिए वो बताता हूँ. क्योंकि ZP3 प्रोटीन हो या स्पर्म हो, दोनों के पास ग्लाइकोसिल ग्रुप है, ठीक है. तो ग्लाइकोसिल ग्रुप दोनों के पास है, तो यहाँ फॉस्फोरिलेशन डीफॉस्फोरिलेशन का तो कोई मतलब नहीं है. सो 3 और 4 ये जाने दीजिए. पहला है सैचुरेट स्पर्म विद ZP3, पर वो ऐसा क्या कह रहा है ये देखिए. इट इज नॉट इनहिबिटेड स्पर्मिक इंट्रैक्शन. इसमें अब क्लियर है डी ग्लाइकोसाइलेशन ही आएगा, क्योंकि ये इट इज रिलेटेड टू द ग्लाइकोसिल, बाकी सब इररिलेवेंट है. सो यू शुड अवॉइड इररिलेवेंसी and think about the main terminology only, then you can understand the answer, reach to the answer. This you can solve. Human sperms are allowed to fertilize ova having non-functional ovastatin, अभी जो बताया हमने, है ना. The following possibility may be significant in the fusion of these gametes. ये recent question है 2018 का. The sperm will not fertilize ova. The sperm, देखो क्या क्या लिखा है. The sperm will bind and penetrate the zona pellucida but not able to fuse with the ovum membrane. ZP2 will not be cleaved by the cortical granule protease. ये C तो सही लग रहा है क्योंकि ZP2 प्रोटीन से रिलेटेड है वेस्टेसिन. तो एक तो C हो गया. अभी देखिए CE होगा या CD होगा या CB होगा, ठीक है. अभी CD9 प्रोटीन के बारे में यहाँ कहीं कोई रोल ही नहीं है, ठीक है. डायरेक्ट आइए ई नंबर पर. पॉलीस्पर्मी में ऑकर्स फ्रीक्वेंटली, ये भी सही है. इट इज रिलेटेड टू पॉलीस्पर्मी. सो आंसर विल बी C एंड E, दैट इज ऑप्शन नंबर 2, ठीक है. नेक्स्ट देखते हैं हम फर्टिलाइजेशन. सो आफ्टर इजोकुलेशन स्पर्म बाइंड टू द एग, फर्टिलाइजेशन ऑकर्स. उससे पहले कैपेसिटेशन है एंड देन फर्टिलाइजेशन. ये सब हमने पढ़ा है. नाउ पॉलीस्पर्मी कैसे इनहिबिट होगा, राइट. सो व्हेन स्पर्म बाइंड टू द एग मेम्ब्रेन, देयर आर टू टाइप ऑफ blockage, fast blockage and slow blockage. In the fast blockage, it is passed through the sodium influx, membrane potential changes, and slow blockage of polyspermy is basically tyrosine kinase stimulation, which lead to the different signal transduction pathway, and it is calcium mediated, ठीक है. You can understand it very well in this slide. that fast blockage कैसे होंगे? Unfertilized egg have a negative charge inside. Clear? It is negative charge, but the charge becomes positive upon fertilization. So once fertilization occurs, there is a change of the membrane potential, and influx of ions occur, positive ion occurs, and hence here it will be more positive. So if it is positive like 10 millivolt, if it was initially minus 20 and it is converted to 10 millivolt, and hence sperm is no more entered inside and it is blocked. That is called fast blockage of polyspermy. It occurs in millions of the second. Okay. So it happens if two sperm are going simultaneously, still once first reached, other can be blocked. Fast polyspermy blockage because of change of membrane potential. Okay. After that, slow blockage occurs, so that after the overcome the effect of fast blockage, now no more sperms is going to interact with the particular ovum, and hence slow blockage is also necessary. So in the slow blockage, you can see here that cortical reaction occurs. When first sperm will bind, they release their hydrolytic enzymes, acrosomal reaction occurs, and once they interact, head contain nucleus will be entered. So entry of sperm nucleus occurs, rest will be remain outside only, and with that cortical granules are going to be released. These cortical granules are basically responsible for the slow blockage. Okay. Next is parturition. Uh, Up to here, the questions are mainly asked in the exam, and after the parturition and etc. These are the portion from where the questions are asked in the short form. It means 1 marks, 2 marks questions will be generally asked from the parturition and some other terminology. That direct question you can find from parturition. It is 2 to 80 days. Everyone knows there are two type of periods. One is embryonic period. It means when fetal development start. The development of the child start. We are saying embryonic. Embryonic is the initial name. So up to first 8 weeks. 8 weeks it means overall 2 months. We are saying embryo. And after 8 weeks to the remaining birth, up to the remaining birth, it means remaining 30 weeks. This is called fetal. So the terminology will be embryo initially, then it will be followed by fetal. Clear? In the fetal period, basically this mother uterus will be totally mature, and the fetus is start taking nutrient from the mother's blood. Okay, I think how they are taking nutrition, etc. Let us understand one by one. The first week of development is basically entry of sperm, ovum, fertilization, etc. After fertilization, zygote will be formed. Up to fertilization, we have already understand. Zygote will be formed. This zygote will undergo the cleavage process. And the cleavage, 2 cell followed by 4 cell, then 8 cell, then morula, then blastula stage occurs. In the blastula stage, they are going to be implanted. And once it is going to be implanted in the endometrium wall, at that time only, after the endometrium entry, ECG hormone is going to be secreted, and we are testing it with the help of pregnancy test kit. Clear? There are different type of cleavages. Again, that question can be asked from here. These cleavages are isolecithal as well as merolethal. Clear? In the isolecithal process, basically radial, spiral, bilateral, rotational, there are so many. Where is the mammalian? The mammalian is rotational. So in mammalian, rotational type of cleavage occurs. It is a holoblastic isolecithal type of cleavage. Clear? Then questions may be asked from amphibians or reptiles, etc. So that you should take care, and many times it is asked from the insect also. In insect, superficial type of occurs, that is centrolecithal process occurs. So this is a mock-up basis process. It means you have to remember these things. Without remembering, you can't just guess. Okay. So I'm just leaving the slide for you only. You can go through again and again, and you can make notes and remember all these things. Okay. Now, next week of development, that is second week, development of trophoblast, development of bilaminar disc, that is 2-layer development, then development of amnion, yolk sac, sinusoids, that is formation of blood vessel, extraembryonic mesoderm, and chorion. These all are going to be developed in second week. In the third week of development, gastrulation occurs. But before going to understand third week, we will understand the terminology of the second week. See, trophoblast is the outermost layer of the embryo. Okay. Then bilaminar is two-layer disc, two-layer. Okay. Epiblast and hypoblast. Then amnion, amniotic cavity you know very well, where fluid is known as amniotic fluid. Then yolk sac is also formed. Sinusoid is basically formation of blood vessels, and these blood vessels of mother and uterus, they are in later on going to make umbilical cord, okay, as well as complete placenta. So the process starts from sinusoids, then extraembryonic mesoderm layer, and chorions. It is a part of placenta. Clear? The next is third week of development where gastrulation movement occurs. These are of various type like invagination, अंदर की तरफ move किए, involution. Here you can see interning of the cell sheet over the basal surface. Then next is ingression, एक पूरा layer अंदर की तरफ migrate किया है. Delamination, एक पूरा layer, one layer, second layer, एक दूसरा का replica बना, but up to certain extent. And in the epibole, complete two-layer replica forms. So these things also earlier asked in the examination, and some questions are still asking. Then gastrula layer development lead to the formation of three-layer development. So the epiblast and hypoblast, they are converted into ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. Okay, epiblast से ectoderm as well as mesoderm, and hypoblast is converted into endoderm. Ectoderm makes nervous system, epidermis of skin, ear, lens, cornea, salivary and pituitary gland. Mesoderm makes skeleton, then muscles, circulatory system, gonads, and endoderm related to the digestive, respiratory, liver, pancreas, epithelial cell, etc. So what type of questions are asked? Now this is important to understand. See, coppers, parathyroid gland, etc. that you should remember for the endodermis. From here, the questions can be asked. Okay. Then gonads, from gonads question can be asked. So these are the important sectors from where questions are generally asked. Now one more question asked into December 2015. Migration of individual cells from the surface into the embryo interior is termed as. तो हमने चार पढ़ा, एक्चुअली वहाँ पांच थे, इनमें से कौन से होंगे? तो हमने पढ़ा है इन्वेजिनेशन, अंदर की तरफ मूव किए, यू टाइप का शेप बन गया था, राइट? Then alveolar cells of the lung arise from which of the following layers? Alveolar cell किससे बने हैं? तो आपको ये मेमोरी वाला है, okay? You should remember it is endoderm. Then next is type of placenta.
सर
Yes.
लास्ट स्लाइड पे थोड़ा मूव करो ना सर. ये माइग्रेशन वाला है तो उसमें आंसर इंग्रेशन आएगा ना, आंसर बी.
See, in the migration, see, invagination and evolution. Ingression and invagination.
माइग्रेशन ऑफ इंडिविजुअल सेल इनटू एम्ब्रियो इंग्रेशन में है.
Wait. Migration individual cells from the surface into the embryo interior. Okay. And this one is infolding. Yes, it is ingression. You're right.
सर
Yes, you're right actually. Yes, ये ऊपर चला गया. It is answer is ingression. Very good. First one was invagination. U type का था, ingression. You're right actually. Now next one is placenta. Good that you are. I'm going a little bit fast, but still you are observing properly. That's good. All the best. Nature of fetal membrane. Choriovitelline, chorioallantoine, and chorioplacenta. These are the examples. Especially questions are asked from human. In human, chorion type of placenta is there. And if I am saying about the nature of maternal and fetal membrane, so here epitheliochorial, then syndesmochorial, etc. So many are there. You can go through. I have only a few minutes left. So I'm just leaving all these things. You have to, if you want, you can read it. Especially you should remember the upper three. Okay. Now certain hormones responsible for pregnancy is HCG, progesterone, estrogen, relaxin. human gonadotropin hormone, and corticotropin releasing hormone. Most of the hormone we have studied in the first part when we studied about role of hormone in the uh, released by the placenta and other organs. Clear? The same is given over here. Okay. Human gonadotropin hormone, somatomamotropin hormone, we have already discussed. Okay. See now, hormonal level during the pregnancy. You can understand initially human gonadotropin hormone, which has initially in the nil amount, they are increasing and then they decrease, and after decreasing they make a threshold level. Whereas estrogen and progesterone level is continuously going to be increased, and hence in the pregnancy you can never found SCG later on, but level of estrogen and progesterone will be always high during the entire pregnancy, 9-month pregnancy period. Okay. Next is prolactin. Prolactin is basically stimulate the mammary gland. We have already studied this mammary gland to produce milk. Prolactin expression is basically stimulated by cyclic AMP. This is new thing. And during pregnancy, estrogen and progesterone inhibit the action of prolactin or milk production. Clear? So प्रेगनेंसी के समय में मिल्क प्रोडक्शन ये ऐसा लिखा है कि ड्यूरिंग प्रेगनेंसी एस्ट्रोजन प्रोजेस्टेरोन लेवल इज हाई एंड दे इनहिबिट द एक्शन ऑफ प्रोलैक्टिन. प्रोलैक्टिन का लेवल डाउन हो जाता है. ठीक है. Oxytocin we have already studied. My aim is to go through some more questions. So we'll see one or two more questions. We have some time to see some CSR question. Okay. Now एक एक्सपेरिमेंट हुआ, राइट. गोनाडोट्रोपिन रिलीजिंग हार्मोन इज सिक्रेटेड ड्यूरिंग द इन्फेंसी. ठीक है, इन्फेंट स्टेज में ही सिक्रेट हो गया 0 to 6 मंथ एंड प्यूबर्टी ऑनवर्ड्स इन मंकी में दिया हुआ है. ठीक है, 4 years के बाद भी सिक्रेट हुआ है और 0 to 6 month में भी हुआ है. ठीक है. हाउएवर IV injection of gonadotropin releasing hormone during pre-pubertal period about 2 years of the age lead to the elevated LH and FSH in the blood compared to the untreated 2-year-old monkey. अभी एक कंडीशन आपको दे दिया गया और आपको कंडीशन को क्या कह रहा है कि गोनाडोट्रोपिन रिलीजिंग हार्मोन सिक्रेट ड्यूरिंग इन्फेंसी में भी सिक्रेट होता है एंड प्यूबर्टी ऑनवर्ड्स होते हैं तब भी सिक्रेट होता है. ठीक है, गोनाडोट्रोपिन रिलीजिंग हार्मोन. ठीक. अब ये क्या कह रहा है कि इंजेक्शन दिया गोनाडोट्रोपिन रिलीजिंग हार्मोन ड्यूरिंग प्री प्यूबर्टल पीरियड, यानी प्यूबर्टी नहीं आया है, 4 साल में प्यूबर्टी आती है, उससे पहले ही गोनाडोट्रोपिन हार्मोन को इंजेक्ट कर दिया गया लगभग 2 साल में. ठीक है. इट लीड टू द एलिवेटेड LH एंड FSH. LH और FSH का लेवल बढ़ गया इन द ब्लड. और अगर किसी को ना करें अनट्रीटेड होगा, यानी कि अगर हम कंट्रोल लें तो दे हैव नॉर्मल लेवल ऑफ दिस LH एंड FSH. तो इससे क्या पता चलता है, व्हाट इट सजेस्ट. तो यहाँ देखिए हाइपोथैलेमस इज एक्टिव ड्यूरिंग प्री प्यूबर्टल पीरियड. हाइपोथैलेमस क्या पहले से ही एक्टिव था. और गोनाडोट्रोपिन रिलीजिंग हार्मोन एक्शन ऑन पिट्यूटरी इज एज डिपेंडेंट. क्या एज डिपेंडेंट है. या पिट्यूटरी मैच्योरेशन मैच्योर्स ड्यूरिंग एडल्टहुड. पिट्यूटरी क्या केवल एडल्टहुड में मैच्योर होता है, या पिट्यूटरी इज एक्टिव इन ऑल स्टेज ऑफ द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ मंकी. विच वन इज करेक्ट. तो अगर आप इसमें से आप एक मिनट, ये आंसर तो खैर मैं आपको यूं दिखा दे रहा हूँ, बट अगर आप ऐसे सोचो भी, मैं डिस्कस इस पर थोड़ा करूँ, तो आप सोचो कि ऊपर देखकर क्या लगता है कि गोनाडोट्रोपिन रिलीजिंग हार्मोन सिक्रेटेड ड्यूरिंग इन्फेंसी, यानी इन्फेंसी में भी वो गोनाडोट्रोपिन रिलीज हो रहा था. इसका मतलब है पिट्यूटरी इज एक्टिव इन ऑल स्टेज इन द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ मंकी. उनमें सभी स्टेजेस में डेवलप थे, ये तो श्योर है. तो ऊपर के पार्ट तो हो ही नहीं सकते, एंड इन दिस केसेस इट विल बी डी ओनली. ये थोड़ा हैजी है. आई हैव टेकन इट डायरेक्टली फ्रॉम स्क्रीनशॉट फ्रॉम द क्वेश्चन, तो इसलिए थोड़ा हैजी हो गया, बट यू कैन सी दिस. ए कन्वीनियंट एंड रीजनेबली, जस्ट अ मिनट, ये मुझे खुद नहीं दिख रहा है क्वेश्चन. Reasonably reliable indicator of the time of ovulation is usually a rise in the basal body temperature, possibly because progesterone is thermogenic. अच्छा, अभी देखो प्रोजेस्टेरोन थर्मोजेनिक है, इसका मतलब ये कह रहा है कि जब प्रोजेस्टेरॉन, थर्मोजेनिक का मतलब एक हिंट कर रहा है, थर्मोजेनिक है मतलब उस समय जब प्रोजेस्टेरॉन लेवल बढ़ेगा ना तो टेम्परेचर लेवल भी हाई होगा। ठीक है, इतना ही समझो इससे। देन ऑफ द 4 सिचुएशन गिवन बिलो विच इज द आइडियल फॉर इंश्योरिंग प्रेगनेंसी आफ्टर इंटरकोर्स। ठीक है, तो इंटरकोर्स के बाद कौन सा आइडियल सिचुएशन है? तो सभी में देखो बॉडी टेम्परेचर कहीं डाउन है देन अप है। जब फर्स्ट वाले में देखिए तो इन द फर्स्ट वन, लेट मी टेक पॉइंटर, इन द फर्स्ट वन यू कैन सी फॉलिकल एंड प्रोजेस्टेरॉन के लेवल के देखो, प्रोजेस्टेरॉन लेवल हाई है पर फॉलिकल स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन देखिए अप एंड डाउन दिखा रहा है। ठीक है, और यहाँ भी आप देखो तो आपको टेम्परेचर बढ़ा फिर घट गया, और इसी तरह से आप प्रोजेस्टेरॉन को देखो तो प्रोजेस्टेरॉन लेवल बढ़े फिर घट गया। तो ये तो होता ही नहीं, प्रेगनेंसी में अगर प्रोजेस्टेरॉन घट गया तो प्रेगनेंसी टर्मिनेट कर जाएगी, यानी कि मेडिकल टर्मिनेशन ऑफ प्रेगनेंसी ही हो जाएगा, या यूँ समझिए कि ये एबॉर्शन हो जाएगा, सिंपल एबॉर्ट हो जाएगा। तो ये पॉसिबल नहीं है। दूसरे वाले में भी डाउन दिखा है, पॉसिबल नहीं है। तो आपको डाउन तो दिखाना नहीं चाहिए, लेकिन एक इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट और है यहाँ पर, तो वो ये कि थर्मोजेनिक दिखा है, यानी फिलहाल आपको थर्मोजेनिक का मतलब है आपको प्रोजेस्टेरॉन और इसके साथ साथ दूसरा जो दिख रहा है, यानी कि देखो आप फॉलिकल स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन, इसको देखो, प्रोजेस्टेरॉन देखो, बॉडी टेम्परेचर देखो, तीनों को आपको अगर एक साथ मिलाइए तो आपको फर्स्ट वाले में अप एंड डाउन तीनों अप एंड डाउन दिखा। थर्ड वाला थोड़ा ध्यान दीजिए तो आपको क्या दिखेगा, धीरे धीरे टेम्परेचर लेवल थोड़ा बढ़ रहा है, और इसके साथ साथ एक डॉट्स भी बढ़ रहे हैं। ये जो डॉट्स बढ़ रहे हैं यहाँ है फॉलिकल स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन, यानी फॉलिकल स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन के साथ साथ आपका टेम्परेचर बढ़ रहा है, और यहाँ दिखा रहा है कि प्रेगनेंसी में प्रोजेस्टेरॉन ज़रूरी है, प्रोजेस्टेरॉन तो डाउन हो गया। तो आंसर सही कौन से हैं, ये एक डिबेटेबल है क्वेश्चन, CSR 2014 में पूछा था और आज भी यहाँ मैंने इसलिए डिबेटेबल लिखा है। ठीक है, आंसर CSR के जो कीज रिलीज हुई उसके हिसाब से है आंसर नंबर 3, बट इट इज़ वाई इट इज़ डिबेटेबल बिकॉज यहाँ डॉट्स और इसमें डिफरेंस है। यहाँ उनको देना चाहिए प्रोजेस्टेरॉन में डॉट और फॉलिकल स्टिमुलेटिंग में डैश डैश, क्योंकि थर्मोजेनिक लेवल, ये जो आपका सीधा लीनियर लाइन है, और प्रोजेस्टेरॉन दोनों अगर एक साथ बढ़े तो इट विल बी करेक्ट। तो ये क्वेश्चन में थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम है। FSH की जगह प्रोजेस्टेरॉन कर दो तो आंसर विल बी 3, बाकी सब तो वैसे भी सूट नहीं करेगा, पर 3 विल बी आंसर इफ इट विल बी चेंज। सो मैंने फिर भी रखा है कि कभी कभी आपको CSR के क्वेश्चन डिबेटेबल हो जाते हैं। ठीक है, तो ऐसा भी मिलेगा, सो डोंट बी फ्रस्ट्रेटेड। Then which one of the following graph best represent the profile in a rat right after mating? तो मेटिंग के बाद आपको पूछ रहा है कि एक प्रोफाइल है, कि आप प्रोफाइल देख के बताइए किसमें कैसा लेवल है। तो मेटिंग के बाद का है, तो आपको इसमें बताना है कि इसके बाद कौन सा लेवल है। अगर आप देखो तो LH का लेवल यहाँ अप हुआ फिर डाउन हुआ, फिर एस्ट्रोजन दिखा रहा है, LH इनहिबिन दिखा रहा है, LH प्रोजेस्टेरॉन दिखा रहा है, और LH के साथ एस्ट्रोजन दिखा रहा है। तो बहुत ही सिंपल सी पॉइंट है, LH का तो सब में सेम ही दिखाया हुआ है, LH इज कॉमन। एस्ट्रोजन का लेवल अगर आप देखिए तो एस्ट्रोजन का लेवल पहले में कम है, दूसरे में एस्ट्रोजन का लेवल पीक पर है, तीसरे में प्रोजेस्टेरॉन बाद में आया है, और चौथे एक में इनहिबिन दिखाया है। तो ऑब्वियसली प्रोजेस्टेरॉन का लेवल बाद में बढ़ना जरूरी है। वाई प्रोजेस्टेरॉन? बिकॉज प्रेगनेंसी के लिए प्रोजेस्टेरॉन रहना जरूरी है। अब ये सारे CSR के क्वेश्चन ओवर हो जाते हैं, एंड देर आर सम अदर क्वेश्चंस विच आर आस्क्ड इन अदर एग्जामिनेशंस अदर देन CSR. There are certain other questions are also there. We will see once. In development, and I think you can solve it also. In development, nervous system, brain, spinal cord, nerve cell, etc. It is actually तो आपको ये बताना है कि कौन किस डर्मल लेयर से बना है। तो याद रखिए नर्वस सिस्टम जब भी आए ना तो उसमें था इट इज इक्टोडर्मल। ठीक है, नर्वस सिस्टम का नाम से ही आप इक्टोडर्मल दीजिएगा। देन एमनियोनिक फ्लूइड प्रोटेक्ट्स द फीटस फ्रॉम, किससे एमनियोनिक फ्लूइड बचाता है? तो फ्लूइड का काम है शॉक से
Shock.
बचाना। हाँ, राइट। देन फर्टिलाइजिन्स आर इमिटेड बाय, फर्टिलाइजिन मैंने कहीं नहीं बताया, मैंने आपको कहा था कहीं कहीं फर्टिलाइजिन नाम रहेगा, एंटी फर्टिलाइजिन रहेगा, कहीं कहीं इसके नाम चेंज हो जाते हैं। तो फर्टिलाइजिंग नहीं बताया इसलिए आपको दिक्कत होगी, तो याद रखिए, मैं आपको जस्ट एक हिंट कर दे रहा हूँ। फर्टिलाइजिंग टर्म जो है ना, ये फीमेल की तरफ से है और मेल की तरफ से एंटी फर्टिलाइजिंग, नाम से पता चल जाएगा। तो फर्टिलाइजिंग में क्या क्या आ जाएगा, तो उस तरफ आप देखो तो उसमें जोना पेलुसिडा होंगे जो मैच्योर एग्स रिलीज होते हैं, और उसके अलावा हाइलुरोनिक एसिड है। और अपने पास यानी मेल की तरफ से जो होगा वो होगा हाइलुरोनिडेज एज वेल एज स्पर्म लाइसिन। तो फर्टिलाइजिंग पूछ रहा है तो ऑफ कोर्स इट इज मैच्योर एग्स। नेक्स्ट इज व्हाट आर द डिप्लॉयड स्टेज इन द मेल गैमेटोजेनेसिस। मेल गैमेटोजेनेसिस में डिप्लॉयड स्टेज कौन सा है, थोड़ा सोच कर बोलना पड़ेगा। डिप्लॉयड स्टेज, क्योंकि गैमेटोजेनेसिस में बाद में तो सब हैप्लॉयड हो जाएगा। तो ऑल स्पर्मेटोगोनिया इज डिप्लॉयड, तो पहले तीन तो आंसर होंगे ही होंगे। उनमें से कौन, तो spermatid is obviously haploid, sperm is haploid, primary spermatocyte is diploid. So spermatogonia is diploid, primary spermatocyte is diploid. When meiosis 1 start, then primary spermatocyte convert into secondary spermatocyte, तब वो जाकर diploid से haploid होते हैं। इसका मतलब है आंसर will be B. Yeah. Then one more question is asked that 50 secondary oocytes in the female and 50 secondary spermatocytes in male give rise to. तो oocytes है 50 और मेल में 50 स्पर्मेटोसाइट्स हैं, स्पर्मेटोसाइट्स, लेकिन ध्यान देना दोनों सेकेंडरी oocytes और सेकेंडरी स्पर्मेटोसाइट्स है, उससे कितने बनेंगे ओवा और कितने बनेंगे स्पर्म। आंख बंद करके बनाओगे ना तो भी बन जाएगा। क्या आंसर होना चाहिए सोचिए। डोंट लुक टुवर्ड्स
100 ova and 200 sperms.
ओहो, आपकी बात अगर मान भी लेते हैं तो भी आप गलत हो जाएंगे। कैसे गलत होंगे आपको बताता हूँ। ये है oocytes, एक oocytes एक बार में एक ही ओवा बनाएगा, क्योंकि बाकी जो हैं वो तो बन जाते हैं पोलर बॉडीज, तो इसलिए पोलर बॉडी बनने के कारण वो तो ब्रेक कर जाएंगे। तो आपका जितने oocytes हैं ना उतना ही ओवा बनेंगे। तो ए इज, बट यू ट्राइड इन ए गुड वे, ठीक है। अब क्वेश्चन ये है कि 100 स्पर्म क्यों लिखा, तो क्वेश्चन का ट्रिक देखो। ये तो फिर भी इजी दे दिया है थोड़ा, इसका ट्रिक ये है कि 50 स्पर्मेटोसाइट्स हैं, लेकिन ये सेकेंडरी स्पर्मेटोसाइट है, यानी वो खुद ही म्योसिस 1 क्रॉस करके और म्योसिस 2 में गया है। तो हम 50 स्पर्मेटोसाइट्स की बात करें ना तो वो डिवाइड होकर स्पर्मेटिड बनाएगा, तो 50 से डायरेक्ट 100 बनेगा, ठीक है। तो क्वेश्चंस के लॉजिक को समझना होगा, आपकी गलती नहीं है, वी आर गोइंग अ लिटिल बिट फास्टर, बट स्टिल you tried in a good way. Now, meroblastic cleavage is okay. Meroblastic ये अभी याद नहीं होगा, आप जब बाद में देखोगे तो आ जाएगा। It is partial. Human beings are, human being क्या है, ovoviviparous, oviparous, viviparous या parthenogenesis, ये आप बता सकते हैं।
Oviparous.
विविपेरस।
ओह यस, विविपेरस। हम तो एक देते नहीं हैं, बच्चे जो जो एक देंगे वो ओवी, जो बर्थ देंगे डायरेक्ट बच्चे वीवी, पार्थेनोजेनेसिस विदाउट फर्टिलाइजेशन। एंड ओ वीवी में क्या होता है, वो एक स्पेशल स्टेज है जिसमें डेवलपमेंट जो होगा वो अंदर ही होगा, ठीक है, इनसाइड ही होंगे, तो एक रिलीज नहीं होता है, लेकिन कंप्लीट प्लासेंटा का डेवलपमेंट नहीं होता है, वो स्टेज होता है ओ वीवी पेरस का। ह्यूमन प्लासेंटा, मैंने क्वेश्चन उसमें बोला था, ध्यान से सुनिएगा, ह्यूमन प्लासेंटा में कौन सा होगा, कोई बात नहीं बता देता हूँ, कोरियॉन्स तो होना ही है, तो इट इज हीमोकोरियॉन, ठीक है। नेक्स्ट इज स्केलेटन एंड मसल्स इन ए वर्टिब्रेट एम्ब्रियो डेवलप्स फ्रॉम, तो मसल्स एंड स्केलेटन कहाँ से डेवलप
Mesodermal.
होंगे, मेसोडर्मल, ठीक है। एंड ए मोरुला कैन डिफ्रेंशिएट फ्रॉम ब्लास्टुला, मोरुला और ब्लास्टुला में क्या डिफरेंस है, ठीक है। तो ब्लास्टुला में कैविटी आ जाती है, मोरुला में नहीं आती है। मोरुला कंप्लीटली सेल्स का पैकेज है और ब्लास्टुला में ब्लास्टोसेल कैविटी बनती है। So this is all I wanted to share. If you have any question, then I can answer. But there are so many things which we have already covered. Okay. And even after completion of this, you can ask question. Praveen sir is coordinator. You can ask question to Praveen sir even. He will pass to me, and definitely I will happy to give answer. Okay. Praveen sir.
So right now I'm only saying only 7 participant is there. I think 5 to 6. So it is very it is very unfortunate for